The famous operation of the assassination attempt on Hitler, Valkyrie, which was perfectly filmed in one of the Hollywood blockbusters, shows the assassin as a kind of hero, without fear in conscience, and almost as the brain of the whole operation. However, this is not entirely true. The ultimate goal of assassination Hitler, no matter how strange it may seem, was so amazing that it is still hard to believe in it today. The beginning of conspiracy. Hitler survived only 4 dozen official assassination attempts in his life. However, the Valkyrie was different. This operation was organized by the highest Reich officers. The very idea to kill the leader of Nazi Germany appeared in 1943. As Heinrich Frankel and Roger Manville wrote, it was also the year when the only people who had the resources to carry out the coup, the military, gave the world a group of young and determined officers, who were not afraid of the risk of taking Hitler's life. One of the main ideological inspirers and organizers of the assassination attempt was Count von Tverskoi, who already back in 1943 organized an unsuccessful assassination attempt. After Hitler's plane took off from Smolensk, a bottle of cognac, a disguised bomb, was placed on board. However, the explosion did not occur due to a defect. Therefore, it was decided to kill the Führer in Germany. After the death of Hitler, the conspirators intended to take total control in Germany, appointing high-ranking officers and simultaneously arresting the leaders of the SS, the Gestapo, and SD security services. Count Klaus Philipp Maria Schenk von Stauffenberg, a hereditary aristocrat who distinguished himself at the front and was one of the most ambitious and enterprising in the entire group of conspirators, was chosen as the executor of the action. Combat Count Klaus von Stauffenberg came from a very noble and influential family. Klaus's father was the Chamberlain of the King of Bavaria, and his mother was the granddaughter of the most famous Prussian generals, von Gneisenau. Initially adopting the Nazi ideology, Klaus von Stauffenberg was quite successful, and it cannot be denied, a very brave officer. While serving in Africa, von Stauffenberg received several serious wounds, losing his left eye, right hand, and 2 fingers on his left hand. In addition, the colonel was wounded in the head, ear, and knee. Naturally, after such injuries, the officer's combat career was over, and Klaus was transferred to the headquarters of the ground forces. And here, it should be noted that according to official history, at least since the beginning of the Second World War, Klaus von Stauffenberg began to be disappointed in Hitler's policy. The combat officer was disgusted by the Nazi punitive operation in Poland. He began to look differently at the very policy of Hitler. Therefore, when the opportunity occurred, he took an active part in organizing the assassination attempt on the Führer. About the Count's views on the politics we will tell later. In the meantime, here's the phrase that the officer lying in the hospital said to his wife. "I feel that I must now do something to save Germany. We, the officers of the General Staff, are obliged to take our share of the responsibility." Several assassination attempts. Hitler, in order to protect himself as much as possible, constantly changed his location, so it was quite difficult to determine in advance the place of the assassination attempt. One of the few events regularly held by Führer was a meeting at the so-called Wolf's Lair, the main headquarters located near the city of Rastenburg in East Prussia. The first attempt was made by von Stauffenberg on December 26, 1943, when the colonel carried a bomb into the headquarters. However, Hitler was saved by chance. He had to urgently leave for the Alpine residence. But the conspirators decided to go on and kill the Führer at any cost. And this was aided by the fact that von Stauffenberg, who had Hitler's personal favor, in June 1944 received the post of commander of the Reserve Army in the rank of colonel, which gave the officer the opportunity to be frequently enough next to the Führer in all his residences and bunkers. However, even the story of the assassination attempt itself is quite surprising. It seemed that some kind of providence was keeping the most terrible executioner of the 20th century. On July 6, 1944, Stauffenberg was supposed to take part in a meeting held by Hitler at the Berghof residence. The colonel report on the state of the Reserve Army was expected at the meeting. Stauffenberg arrived at the scene fully prepared, with the bomb hidden in his briefcase. However, for unknown reasons, a second explosion did not occur, and the colonel continued to carry the bomb in his briefcase until 11th of July. And somehow, officer did not arouse any suspicion either among the guards or the special services. But even on the 11th, and so Colonel again for almost 10 days until July 20th carried explosives right under everyone's noses. On July 20, 1944, a meeting on the situation on all fronts was scheduled at the Wolf's Lair. Stauffenberg was to report on the rate of formation and execution of plans to man the reserve units. Before leaving the Hitler's headquarters, the colonel said to his brother, "Whoever finds the courage to do this will go in history as a traitor. But if he refuses to do this, he will be a traitor to his conscience." Initially, it was calculated that the meeting, as always, would be held in one of the bunkers. In this case, 2 kilograms of explosives would have blown all participants in the meeting, including Hitler, in pieces. However, again, for unknown reasons, the meeting was not only shortened in time, but also moved from the bunker to a wooden building nearby. The reason for the transfer allegedly was the planned work in the bunker to strengthen the walls and ceilings. Also, due to the visit of the Italian dictator, the meeting was postponed half an hour earlier, and the report of the colonel himself was shortened. When Stauffenberg entered the room, he managed to get to Hitler's as close as possible, at a distance of about a couple of meters, and put the briefcase under the table. Under the constant supervision of the guards, acting only with one and then a crippled hand, the colonel managed to somehow activate the detonator. But for unclear reasons, it did not activate. Perhaps constant surveillance prevented it. However, the bomb was designed in such a way that the second detonator would go off automatically. But again, for unknown reasons, the colonel did not put in the briefcase the second block of explosives. So this fact would already have the force of the explosion. Perhaps Stauffenberg was counting on the fact that he would be able to move the briefcase as close to the Führer as possible. And then, under a completely possible pretext, he managed to leave the meeting. And again, a chain of fatal accidents. Just a few seconds before the explosion, Colonel Brandt, for some reason, rearranged the briefcase away from Hitler. As a result, the Führer was saved from death by an oak table, which protected him from fragments and blast wave. Of the 24 people, 4 were killed and 17 were injured as a result of the bomb explosion. The colonel himself was firmly convinced that the attempt had taken place and that the Hitler was dead. However, at night, miraculously, surviving Führer spoke on the radio, telling the Germans about the divine providence that saved his life. Most of the conspirators on Hitler's personal order were hanged on guitar strings. The method of execution is very long and causes terrible torment. Stauffenberg himself, together with his brother, offered armed resistance during the arrest. The colonel was wounded in the shoulder and shot the next day.